Hey, this is Jeff from EDM Academy, and in this video I'm going to show you how to create a popular saturated electro bass using only Native Instruments Massive. Here's an example of how it's going to sound. This sound is simply a saw wave and a triangle wave stacked on top of each other with some overdrive to beef it up. So let's get started. Open up a fresh instance of Massive and be sure to select File and New Sound to clear the default preset. Turn on oscillators 1 and 2. In oscillator 1, make sure the wavetable is set to square sine 1. Turn all 3 knobs to their maximum and change spectrum to bend minus plus. This version of a saw wave has less sub-bass but more texture. Finally, drop the pitch down to -24 semitones. Set the wavetable of the second oscillator to sine triangle and select bend plus instead of spectrum. Set the first 2 knobs to their maximum and the amp knob to 10 or 11 o'clock. Set the pitch to -12. You'll notice that this oscillator doesn't change the core sound very much, but what it will do is add some overtones to the higher end of the EQ spectrum, which are more defined when we add overdrive. Overtones in this case will help listeners hear the bass as something that stands out in the mix as a leading instrument. While we're on the subject of overtones, let's add more of those and a bit of saturation by turning the feedback knob to 9 o'clock. This has another real subtle effect. This bass sound is pretty good right now, but it needs to be a lot fatter if it's going to carry an electro house track. Go over to Insert 1 and select Hard Clipper from the menu. Turn the dry wet to 2 o'clock and leave the drive at 12 noon. Additionally, let's go to Effects 1 and select Classic Tube from the menu. Set both knobs to 10 o'clock. This bass is sounding much beefier than when we started. Let's get a little bit of glide transition between the notes. In the Voicing tab, select Mono Rotate and Legato Triller from the Voicing section of the menu. Now that we can only play one note at a time, the glide should be working. You can adjust the glide time in the OSC tab, using the knob on the left side called Time. Adjust this to taste. Although I won't cover it in this tutorial, you can add some effects to the sound from your VST library or DAW stock plugins that will make this bass totally roar. In my collection, I've added an overdrive and an EQ to the effects chain to boost the high end even further. Notice how I'm using a splitting technique to ignore the sub-bass, and how I'm scooping out some of the harsh low-mid frequencies with the EQ. This is just my personal taste, and I invite you to experiment further. And that should do it. Grab the preset for this sound and many others inside our free sample pack, which you can download on edmacademy.net. Thanks for checking out this tutorial, and I'll see you next time.